IBM Consulting is implementing projects for its clients on the BSV blockchain. My guest this week, Agata Slater, works closely with BSV entrepreneurs. And although IBM remains, as she says, blockchain agnostic, it's gaining experience of BSV, which potentially it could use in working with future clients.
You're listening to CoinGeek Conversations with Charles Miller.
So Agata, perhaps you could start off just by telling us a little bit about your role at IBM.
Sure. I'm a blockchain consultant at IBM, currently leading the blockchain practice in Central and Eastern Europe. And my role is to engage with our clients on building solutions based on blockchain technology, mainly from a business angle. So we have a comprehensive team that helps mostly enterprise clients design and implement blockchain solutions, from conceptualizing on the use cases, on the architecture, advising on the best technology choices, all the way through to implementation and support, technical support.
If a client comes to IBM with some sort of an issue that they want to improve in their processes or whatever, do they presumably don't come and say, what we want is blockchain for this? Is it IBM who says, well, actually, now we've looked at your problem, what we recommend is blockchain? Is that how it works? Or?
It actually works both ways. So we have some clients who have heard about blockchain, are fascinated with the technology, bet on it as the technology of the future, and they approach us with the vision, some preliminary vision of how they would like to implement it, and we help them fine-tune it and address some of the issues they might have, or just help them understand the capabilities of this technology better. But we also have clients who, of course, come to us with a certain problem that they have, and then we create a solution, and blockchain might be only one piece of that solution. And that's about Kosher approach, as I call it, So I see blockchain as a piece of technology that works best alongside other technologies in a broader technology stack. But the main goal should be always to address a client problem first. And sometimes we even advise clients against blockchain, because over the past years, there has been so much hype and push towards blockchain that sometimes we say, look, you can actually solve that problem without blockchain, or that, is not a good use case, basically.
That's funny, because they think blockchain is the latest thing and we must have it, I guess.
Some clients do that, yes.
Well,
yes.
Next it'll be people coming saying we want some AI in our
business.
That's
happening already too, yeah. And there are some clients as well who come for both technologies, but that's it's a very emerging thing. And I believe that this relationship between blockchain and AI is really a very powerful one.
So as a specialist in blockchain area, do you have available a number of kind of off-the-shelf solutions, and you can say, well, actually, this is the perfect thing for you? Or is it more a question of coming up with something that is customized for each client and for each case?
I represent a department of IBM called IBM Consulting, and our role is to remain technology agnostic. So we can propose some of solutions from the IBM offering portfolio, but we absolutely don't have to. So we might reach for the solutions that are out there or on the market and offer them, as a service, or partner with a technology provider and together, go to market with a certain product. Or we can build custom solutions as well, depending on the problem that the client has. But this is a very flexible approach, and the goal is to, serve and support the client in the best way we can.
Because IBM is often associated with Hyperledger.
It is, yes.
But Hyperledger is not owned by IBM or anything, I don't think.
It's not. So IBM has contributed quite substantially to the code for Hyperledger Fabric. And we have been very much correlated with Hyperledger ever since. And it's a fair correlation. We have been working with Hyperledger Fabric for many years. IBM invested a lot in this technology, and it was even a core of the solution we called IBM Blockchain Platform. So it has been an IBM asset that, with Hyperledger Fabric at the core, that we would use as a sort of ready-to-go blockchain technology stack.
And is that still the case today as much as it ever was?
It is changing. So, and IBM's approach to blockchain is changing as well as we see the trends changing. So, IBM also has to adjust to the emerging trends, and this trend that we broadly label as Web3 is changing things a little bit. So, as there is more and more need for digital assets, digital identity, all these decentralization and building decentralized economies, we also realize that we need to be more flexible as to the technologies that we propose. And permissioned blockchain that Hyperledger is not always fit the use case based on Web3. So that's why we need to broaden our portfolio and work with permissionless blockchains as well.
I mean, it's sometimes said that permissioned blockchains like Hyperledger are a sort of first step for rather cautious corporations, and that when they get comfortable with that, then a public blockchain would be acceptable. Has that been your experience?
To some extent. So there are very good business reasons as well why clients reach for Hyperledger, for solutions like Hyperledger Fabric. And they're to do with privacy, with control, with compliance. So expecting a big enterprise to jump into a permissionless solution where they have no control over anything really, over the ledger, it's a very risky thing. So one thing is, there's like a cushy way to start with blockchain, but on the other hand, there are strong business reasons for which enterprises reach for solutions like Hyperledger.
When you're talking to your clients, who is it that you have to persuade? Is it the person with the technical knowledge, or is it their board or the CEO? Or in terms of the sort of diplomacy of the thing, how does that work normally?
That is a very, very good question. And thank you for that question, because it's a big challenge. Blockchain is such a it's a technology that solves business problems on the one hand, yet it belongs to the technology, department. So it's very flexible, and it's not always intuitive as to who to speak to about blockchain. Sometimes it's CIOs, sometimes it's CTOs, sometimes it's CEOs, depending on which angle we want to pursue. And there are risks associated with talking to each of those people, So if you go to a CIO, and there is an innovation pressure on the shoulder of that person, then sometimes it's likely that there is going to be a POC project, and then that's it, because there is an innovation.
POC?
A proof of concept. So we just try out a solution. They can tick a box that, they're trying out innovation, experimenting, and we don't really see this solution being pushed to
That's a way of sort
production.
of getting rid of the question.
Pretty much. I'm of course simplifying, and it's not always like that, but that's one of the risks. And then when you start talking to people who are responsible for the technology, then of course the main question that comes back is, why do we have to do this on a blockchain? Can we look for alternatives?
Well, that's a legitimate question.
That is a very legitimate question. So that's just like a different angle. And then when you speak to CEOs, they don't actually care about the technology, right? They just care about having their business problem solved. So then eventually you end up with the why blockchain question as well. But there, the business layer is more important. And as a blockchain team, a team that deploys blockchain solutions, you have to have a know-how, like a cross, expertise on blockchain architecture, development. So it is almost like building new startups every time, working with blockchain solutions. But working with enterprises is also quite interesting because it's a very specific environment. There's tons of policy, tons of compliance, tons of overhead that you have to overcome. And it's a slightly different story than, being in this startup ecosystem where everything is a bit faster and a bit agile.
Right. I just want to talk about Web3 a little bit, because you mentioned that as kind of the evolution, really, of the work that you were doing. And I've seen you were interviewed about this, and you came up with this rather neat list of different aspects of Web3 that could be useful, which is identity, tokenization, traceability, and payments. Now, okay, so I suppose my sort of basic question is, are those things really new, or is Web3 just a new word for some of the things that you could do with blockchain?
To me, Web3 a certain type of promise of what internet could look like. And to make that promise work, to see it come to light, we need certain enablers, technological enablers. And the 4 components that I mentioned in an interview, to me, are the pillars of what Web3 really is. And you're correct in saying that equivalents of those solutions are already there. We have a digital identity solutions. We have ways of making payments on their internet, right? Tokenization is maybe something unique to the blockchain, but I suppose we could have digital assets without them being on the blockchain. So we have equivalents, but as we're trying to build this decentralized ecosystem where certain things need to meet, right? So you need to have different business partners that are willing to collaborate. You need to ideally be able to connect different technologies. So, we have tons of data being produced by IoT infrastructures. We have AI that also, enables completely new solutions to be built. You need this trusted tech environment that can connect all that. And if I were to, pinpoint one element that to me is absolutely fundamental, it would be identity, because it is this, protection mechanism for a person, for a business, for a machine that will enable the communication between different stakeholders in a decentralized ecosystem in a way that is fair, transparent, and leaves the control over the data with the owner of that data, which is what we're missing now, So when we say that there are digital identity solutions, they are definitely imperfect because, we leave the data that is fundamental to us with someone else. It's just simply not how it should be. And I think it's quite intuitive.
Right. Well, now you are involved in a number of specific Bitcoin SV related projects.
Yes.
Can you just perhaps give me an overview of how Bitcoin SV and its capabilities kind of sit in the kind of landscape of blockchain that you work with?
So being here in this conference and many other events related to Bitcoin SV, I know that there is a very passionate community behind this technology. Us stepping in, me personally representing IBM, I'm a bit more withdrawn from that discussion as to, which blockchain is the best, which protocol is the most optimal one. As I said in the beginning, we really just are looking to solve our clients' problems with the best tech solutions there are. So by definition, we're agnostic as to, we're like passionless about this technology, but that leaves us an open mind to really assess the technical capabilities of this technology. And I mentioned as well that we're a comprehensive team. We have, technical architects, we have developers, and we all looked at this technology together and we assessed it from many different angles. And we feel that it offers a very good fit for enterprise use cases because of its scalability, because of low transaction cost. When you're proposing a solution to an enterprise, first thing that they're looking for is stability. They can't afford to take the risk that in 2 years' time, the blockchain that they are building an application on is not going to exist. So us proposing a permissionless solution to an enterprise, we're also as IBM accountable in some ways for that. So we have to make sure that the technology fits well. And the second thing that they're looking for is scale. And there are very few technologies, permissionless blockchains that offer the type of scale that BSV promises. And I'm saying promises because to me, we're sort of still missing the real life applications of that scale. I think this is going to change as more enterprises that have that scale by design are stepping into the ecosystem. That will be a real stress test for BSV.
So it would be helpful for IBM to point to some commercial use of Bitcoin SV and sort of say, well, look, this is already working. We've got a case study here that should give you confidence. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, true. However, we're yet to see, this technology being used by enterprises at scale, but I think this is going to change very soon. And we work with many clients. Some of them are still very attached to this idea of permissioned blockchains. But as we've already said, this is sort of like a continuum. It's like the cloud evolution, right? You start from a private cloud, then you move on to hybrid, and then you end up with public cloud. It's something similar happening with blockchain, but as enterprises, and there are more adventurous enterprises who are stepping into this space. I think we're very quickly going to see that scale being really implemented in an enterprise context.
And what about the specific partnerships that you have with BSV-related startups? Can you tell me a little bit about them?
Yes. So last year, we were collaborating extensively with Hyperledger on building the CertiHash application. And this year, last year, we started a very successful collaboration with Gate2Chain, who are a very promising, fantastic, enthusiastic team. And together, we have built an application called Trace, that creates an immutable record of transactions and a history of any asset, basically, and in a form of a digital twin.
And I know that can be used to trace the provenance of food, because there's been some sort of dinners where people have been able to see where their lettuce leaf came from and stuff like that.
That's true. I sadly missed that, but I heard it was good.
But so that is something, was Gate2Chain your client in that circumstance, or were you sort of hiring them to produce something that you can then offer to other clients?
So Gate2Chain is our client, and they picked us to develop this solution with them, thanks to our experience in these enterprise solutions. So they see Trace as a purely enterprise-grade application. That's their target client. So they wanted to use our know-how and expertise on building these sort of applications. And it's been a very successful collaboration so far.
And is there the possibility then that you may have clients who are not related to any of this yet, and you will say, oh, well, actually, I happen to know about this thing called Trace, which might be just what you need?
Absolutely. So we see a growing interest in solutions like that. And especially since, there is this push towards sustainability and circular economy. There are regulations coming that will enforce that on many manufacturers. So soon solutions like Trace will become very desirable. So it's very exciting that there is, an as a service, off-the-shelf solution out there that is backed by very solid technology.
You've alluded to some of the sort of partisan sort of battles in the world of Bitcoin and around that. I mean, you're here at the London Blockchain Conference. Do you think that this industry is perhaps growing up a little bit, and that perhaps some of those very sort of raw feelings are perhaps being a little bit less than they might have been a few years ago, and that perhaps it's just business now? Are we heading in that direction?
We're heading in that direction. When it comes to maybe the maturity level, we're in late adolescence. And I understand why people feel so passionately about that. And it would be a shame to take that away, because it's a certain type of energy that draws people into these events, into this ecosystem. So very vibrant culture. I really love that. But yes, when you are an enterprise and you come to an event where you don't understand half of the things that people are talking about because it's just stuffed with technical terminology and, layer 1, layer 2, Ethereum, BSV, you're just confused. And I'm very happy to see that we're moving on towards more business discussion. Perhaps that's split into two stages where, everybody can have something that interests them, because there are also technical people who want to learn more about BSV and how to apply it. So maybe that's a good split. But to answer your question directly, yes, I think we're heading in the right direction, and we need even more events that will, highlight that use case, usability and feasibility of this technology.
I just want to end by asking you something a bit more personal, because you talk about the difficulties of the language and the jargon here.
Yeah.
I know that you are a doctor of philosophy, a PhD from Edinburgh University in linguistics.
Yes, that's true.
And that you studied some, I don't know, what would you call it, the language of Caribbean
That is true.
cultures.
Well done. You've done your research. Wow.
So
Yeah.
just give me a little bit of color on that, which is very interesting.
Now I have to not walk into a trap of using all this terminology to explain that. But essentially, I was very interested on how language represents us as social creatures. So how we can differentiate between our identities based on how we speak. And you can analyze these trends in a very sort of on an individual level, on an how a specific person talks. But you can also investigate communities and entire societies and be able to analyze it on a macro scale. And there are some sophisticated quantitative tools that you can apply to measure that. And that's very exciting.
So you went to the Caribbean and found out, was it a sort of survey of the particular words that people were using in different communities and how they were changed? And then you related that to social development or something in the economic development?
To some extent. So it was an ethnographic research. So it involved actually recording people, trying to capture their vernacular speech in everyday situations, which, anthropologically is very difficult because you have to become a part of a community, because we have this tendency to switch to a more formal language when we are in the presence of someone who we don't know, So I needed to first familiarize myself with the people. They had to do that with me to be able to really jump into that level of familiarity. And then you mentioned words. They were actually grammatical features. So my expertise was in grammar morphology. So these little bits of words that, point to specific grammatical features. Yeah, so it's getting specific from there. But, that was my academic career, but as you might already know, it finds very little applicability in real life.
Well, I was going to ask you, there are these communities that you're working with now.
Yeah, yes.
Do you ever sort of get echoes of those kind of ideas when you are talking to, you talked about the different considerations in talking to CEOs and tech people. You must, I wonder whether there's some sort of crossover in what you learned in those studies.
Very interesting point. So there are definitely cultural differences, and you need to be able how to navigate between them, that's for sure. But I think it would be a very interesting thesis study, actually, to see, from all sorts of angles, also linguistic, if there is a difference between these different communities and how they identify themselves.
Well, maybe one day.
Maybe one day, yeah. I'm not going back to academia, though, not planning.
Agata, thank you very much indeed. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much to Agata Slater. Next week, I'll be finding out about the sports business with the founder of a new platform which promises to let you be an investor and a fan at the same time. So please join me with Raphael Gellner of Zetley Fueling Sports. Until then, thanks for listening, and from me, Charles Miller, goodbye.
Hey everybody, I'm Kurt Wooker Jr. Join us live on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where you can ask me questions, comments, blessings, cursings, grapes, or gropes. You can catch us live across CoinGeek's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and probably a whole bunch of other places too.
I think the big thing here, the big innovation, is the ordinals numbering system.
So utility is driven by this whole idea of springboarding us in terms of innovation by using micropayments and unlocking all these different new ways of doing things.
Decentralization, the meme, as people think of it, I don't think exists at all, anywhere.
Bitcoin mining, Bitcoin wallet, blockchain, stablecoins, MetaNet, the evolution of money. Everybody is talking about Bitcoin today, but what exactly is it? Learn the basics from experts. Learn what Bitcoin is, how it works, and why it matters. Blockchain 101, your ultimate guide to the fundamentals of blockchain.